Good afternoon, Guelph. My name is Mark Per all of us, and that rhymes with for all of us. And I'm the People's Party candidate for the Guelph riding for the October federal election. I hope you vote for me. And I started looking into climate change and climate emergencies being declared across the country by municipalities, by federal governments, by the federal government just recently, and by provincial governments as well. Every level of government is calling for a climate emergency. And I wanted to find out what exactly that meant. There are many municipalities across Canada who have already called for a climate emergency. And the reason I'm doing this video is because Mr. Bernier has said very clearly that the People's Party does not want to tax. We would repeal the carbon tax. We don't want to tax Canadians or businesses for carbon. He says that, and I agree with him, that individual people, municipalities, and provincial governments can handle the environment much better than a federal government imposing rules and taxes on citizens from those places, provinces across the country. And I think that's true. Guelph has a municipal plan. Guelph has had a municipal plan. We've been leaders in this since 2016. I talked to Jonathan Knowles yesterday about the plan and what's happening, about the limitations of our technology, about what we can realistically do in the next five years, 10 years, etc., and what's been happening around Guelph for the last couple of years. Where are we now? Already, our electricity is largely been the greenhouse gases have been largely removed from our electricity generation. But my question is more of policy. I like to think about policy. How does this affect city planning? And I think it affects it zero. I think this is a waste of time declaring an emergency, especially in light of the fact that Guelph has a plan. But again, I'm getting off track. This video is to show I'm in favor of making choices that help Guelph reduce business costs, because when you are more efficient, it costs less to run your business. I support that fully. I think that's a wonderful idea, and that necessarily reduces energy needs, it reduces energy usage across the board, and whether that's natural gas, because we use gas for heating, etc., or if that's nuclear powered or green powered. We have solar and wind in Ontario. It's a little bit more expensive, but that has been a choice that Canadians and Ontarians have made over the last 20, 25 years. Since 1998, we moved from coal producing plants to nuclear and green energy. And because of those choices, we have fewer smog days. So that's a tangible, real effect. My main point is that municipalities and provincial governments can much better manage our climate initiative than a draconian government taking a carbon tax and then taking it in and redistributing it. During my conversation with Mr. Knowles yesterday, I said, how much does the carbon tax help our plan? And he was kind of not taken aback, but he didn't have an answer right away. And the answer is essentially it doesn't. It doesn't. It makes things more expensive. It makes things more expensive for businesses. It makes things more expensive for communities. It makes things more expensive for individuals, period. Everything gets more expensive with a carbon tax. And so I fully support repealing the tax. I'm fully comfortable with the plan that Guelph has, and I want to show you what a climate emergency looks like and what our local climate looks like as well. So here is Global News reporting Kingston first Ontario municipality to declare climate emergency. Kingston City Council made history Tuesday evening when it passed a motion to declare a climate emergency within city limits. The motion was brought by first-term councillor and longtime Kingston Green Party candidate Robert Keeley, sorry if I've got that wrong, and seconded by Councillor Jim Neal. I scroll down a little bit. And although Kingston has already set a goal to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 30% by the year 2030, Keeley says there's an urgency for the city to come up with new ways to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and set new climate change targets. We can have more people riding transit, electrify our transit, said Keeley, making sure that we plant more trees and having an urban park with native species planted. I scroll down a little bit again. Both Halifax, Nova Scotia, and Vancouver, British Columbia have recently declared climate emergencies, as have several municipalities in Quebec, according to Keeley, but Kingston is the first to do so in Ontario. The motion passed unanimously at Tuesday's evening City Council vote Keeley called, quote, a true community moment. According to the motion itself, declaring a climate emergency will help the city name, frame, and deepen Kingston's commitment, quote, to protecting our economy, our ecosystem, and our community from climate change. Although the motion is a symbolic gesture, Keeley says council is prepared to act. I want to highlight this. The motion is a symbolic gesture? Keeley says the City Council is currently discussing practical ways to dramatically reduce the city's greenhouse gas emissions, ways that will be ironed out during strategic planning sessions slated for the end of March. And I was interested in this, so I dug it up. This Kingston City Council starts its strategic planning session. So the WIG standard, this is reported on March 26th, and the only mention is here, and I'll read it. It says, climate change has already been singled out for special consideration by City Council when it passes a motion declaring a climate emergency earlier this month. Acting Chief Administrative Officer Regina Int'l, sorry if I got that wrong, reminded Council that there are some initiatives that were in the last strategic plan that are still ongoing. Int'l said staff would need some direction to make sure Council still wants those ongoing works to remain among the city's priorities in the coming years. Quote, I want to make sure there is clarity there, Int'l said. We would continue our work unless Council says it's not a direction we want to go. Among other ongoing projects and programs are the workforce and in-migration strategy, planning for development of a downtown campus for St. Lawrence College, the development of Innovation Park, and intensification in the urban part of the city. Okay, and so that's the mention. Basically, we've got things that we're doing. Can we continue funding those things? That's the work that we're doing on climate change, and otherwise, it's a symbolic gesture. Interesting. Here's Halifax as well. Halifax joins Vancouver as second city to declare climate emergency. Halifax City Council voted on Tuesday to declare a climate emergency, a mostly symbolic acknowledgement that climate change is a serious and urgent threat. The municipality is unlikely to receive additional funds from the province or federal government as a result of the decision, but will use the declaration as an opportunity to stress that climate change is real while considering how it might implement serious changes to the municipality's climate change plan. Richard Zarowski, sorry if I've got that wrong, councillor for Timberley, Beechive, Clayton Park, Wedgwood, and Council's resident champion for environmental issues, was the man who brought the motion to Council. Okay, so again, another symbolic gesture. What does this do? It doesn't access federal money. It doesn't do anything other than it's a symbolic gesture saying we all agree that we have to do something. I say again, Guelph's had a plan since 2016. We all agreed. We did something in 2016. We spent $300,000 to do it. Why are we rehashing this? Why are we wasting time on this? Again, we have homelessness. We have drug addiction as major problems facing our city. We have out of control housing prices and costs. We have all sorts of problems to deal with and a plan for this one. What are we wasting our time on? Here's the federal government, provincial government, not the federal government, dealing with the same climate emergency declaration. It was voted down, but you can read through all of the back and forth from John Michael McGrath, who's tweeting it out. And I'm not going to go through it now because I've got other stuff to get to. I wanted to show you this, and this is the last part of this video, but it's going to be about 5 minutes, so I'm sorry it's a little longer than normal, but here we go. It says Canada's warming at twice the global rate, leaked report finds. That's really interesting. This was reported on April 1st, 2019, and I've read this then, and I started doing a bit of research then, but we'll see that in a minute. Here we go. It says Canada is, on average, experiencing warming at twice the rate of the rest of the world, with northern Canada heating up at almost 3 times the global average, according to a new government report. The study, Canada's Changing Climate Report, the CCCR, was commissioned by Environment and Climate Change Canada. It says that since 1948, Canada's annual average temperature over land has warmed 1.7 degrees Celsius. That's a lot. With higher rates seen in the north, the prairies, and the northern British Columbia. In northern Canada, the annual average temperature has increased by 2.3 degrees Celsius. Wow, that's really high. According to the U.S. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, since 1948, global average temperatures have increased by about 8 degrees Celsius. Wow. Along with these temperature increases, the CCCR says Canada is experiencing increases in precipitation, particularly in winter, extreme fire weather, and water supply shortages in summer, and heightened risk of coastal flooding. The report was authored by government scientists from the Ministers of Environment and Climate Change, Fisheries and Oceans, and Natural Resources, with contributions from university experts. The document says that while warming in Canada has been the result of both human activity and natural variations in the climate, that, quote, the human factor is dominant, especially in emissions of greenhouse gases. I wonder how they measured that. So what I did is I thought to myself, I wonder what Pearson International Airport looks like from 1940 to now. And this is that graph. And that's weird because I was expecting to see warming. I was expecting to see something. I was expecting to see a steady march up or something. But this is 1980 and this is 2000. And the temperature is unbelievably stable. So that's really weird, I thought. And so this is 1938. And this is 1940, so the Second World War, 1941, right? And this is 1967 and 68. And just in case you're not sure about my data, all of my data is linked. So here's all the days of April in 1938, charted and then averaged out here. Here's the average. And where did I get the data? Here's the Pearson data. April, this one's 1989, but you can see it goes all the way back to 1937. Actually, 1938 is where April starts. 1937 didn't have any April data, and then goes up to 2013. And the modern airport data is available from 2013 to 2017 on a different page, but it's still within this historical data. Past weather and climate, right? Historical data. So that was weird to me. That was weird and very strange to me. And there's multiple lines on this graph sheet. The link will be in the description. You can come and look at this for yourself. You can check it out, download the CSVs. You can plot this graph yourself. It's very easy. I've done some how-to videos for people who are interested, but that's not the point of this video. The point of this video is this is unbelievably stable for an area, Canada, that's supposed to be warming at twice the rate of the rest of the world. This is very, very, very stable temperature. The average in April in all of these years follows these patterns. It's around between 7 degrees and 16.2 degrees. The high was in 2010. 2017 was low, 2018 was really low, and 2019 was 10 degrees because April just finished, right? And, well, not just finished, but recently finished. And so I thought to myself, how many other temperature graphs across Canada, because Canada is warming at twice the rate, look just like this? Here's Vancouver International Airport, following the same patterns and the same graphing style, okay? There's all the days, there's the average, right? And here's the graph. Okay, Calgary. Here's Calgary. 2018 was warm in Calgary. 2018 was an outlier in Calgary, right? A little higher. Here's Regina. Right? Calgary, Alberta, right? A little warm, but back down to normal. This is not a steady march up. And something else I'll show you, something else I thought was really interesting. Here's a low outlier, 1907, right? It's almost the same. Maybe 2018 is a little bit higher. But what about this very, very stable weather is causing storms? I don't know. Here's Fort McMurray, and this is just what I want to show you because this person helped me out. Here's all the raw data. And their source is the same as my source. And so I wanted to show you, this is all the years from 1944 plotted to 2019. So this is January, right? And so in 2019, right, it's very, very -11, -8, right? This is the last 100 years. This is maybe a warming trend that I was expecting to see, right? I was expecting to see maybe a warming trend like that the last 5 years, 6 years, maybe even over 10 years, you see it kind of go up. I don't see any of that. And I'm talking about on the Pearson data, right? But within 1 year, okay, so we've got, this is January. So January is kind of normal here, -5, -13. And normal, what's normal, right? Like it's kind of all over the map, but is that normal? Is that normal? Okay, so the high and the lows are very tight. And here is, let's look at February. Okay, February is very cold, right? The last couple of years, February is very cold. This is 2017, 2018, 2019. That's the high. The bottom one's the low. The blue one's the high, right? So is that average? Is that normal? That looks pretty average to me. It looks bang on. It looks like 1977 was a very warm year, but that's just an outlier, right? 1964, another warm year. And 1979, a cold year. And 2019, another cold year. So interesting. Let's go look at March. I'm getting to a point here. That's not it. Sorry. May, I think, is my point. Yeah. So May looks like it's warming, right? The last couple of years, May's been warmer, right? And yet, in the same year, in the same month, in the same years, we don't see the same trend in January or February, right? We see a colder February trend. So what I'm getting at after this long walk is when they talk about these averages, well, they showed a temperature graph. Here it is. Here's the temperature graph. And I don't see this. I don't see these. I don't see either of these. I see a very stable graph. Where do they get this marching up? I'm willing to be convinced. Challenge. Find this map. Find a way to reproduce this. Right? Find a way to reproduce this even march upward, because I don't see it. I don't see it anywhere. I don't see it anywhere. That's my Pearson graph. And here's my Pearson data. Try it out. Here's the Hamilton Spectator reporting Great Lakes feeling effect of rapid climate warming. Great Lakes, yeah. The Great Lakes region is warming faster than the rest of the U.S., a trend likely to bring more extreme storms while also degrading water quality, worsening erosion, and posing tougher challenges for farming, scientists reported on Thursday. And this was reported March 21st, 2019, so a couple of months ago. The annual mean air temperature in the region, which includes portions of the U.S. Midwest, Northeast, and Central Canada, rose 1.6 degrees from 1901 to 1960, and from 1985 to 2016, according to the report commissioned by the Chicago-based environment, blah, blah, blah. The same period, the mean temperature for the remainder of the contiguous United States rose 1.2 degree. Okay, so I don't have data for the whole United States. Sorry about that. Warming is expected to continue this century, with rates depending on the volume of heat-trapping gases such as carbon dioxide and methane that humans pump into the atmosphere. As the air warms, it will hold moisture, which likely will mean heavier winter snowstorms and spring rains, with more flooding in vulnerable areas, yet summer will be hotter and drier. Quote, climate change is already affecting the climate of the Great Lakes region and the physical behavior of the Great Lakes themselves, says Don Wiebels, an atmospheric scientist at the University of Illinois and former assistant director of the Office of Science and Technology Policy in the Obama administration. Okay, so while the annual U.S. precipitation increased 4% between 1901 and 2015, it jumped nearly 10% in the Great Lakes region, with much of the increase due to unusually large storms. The report said future precipitation is likely to happen less evenly, decreasing 5 to 15% in the summer by 2100. Heat waves should become more common, posing risks for the elderly and children with asthma by the end of the century. The region should have up to 40 additional days with temperatures exceeding 32.2 degrees Celsius. Winter snowfall should decrease in most places, although locales accustomed to lake effect squalls can expect them to dump even more snow, particularly along Lake Ontario snowbelt in New York. The region could have longer growing seasons, said Brad Cardinal, of the University of Michigan's Cooperative Institute for Great Lakes Research, but the report suggests the benefits could be offset by wetter springs that make it harder to plant crops, plus increasing drought and heat in summer. Corn and soybean yields are expected to drop 10 to 30% by the century's end. Drinking water quality will be degraded by more releases of untreated sewage during heavy storms and runoff of nutrients that feed harmful algae blooms, some toxic. While such blooms are common on Lake Erie and portions of Lake Huron and Lake Michigan, they've also begun showing up in deep, frigid Lake Superior, an unprecedented development, said Lucinda Johnson of the University of Minnesota at Duluth. Beaches, dunes, and shorelines will experience more erosion from heavier rainfall, the report predicted. It's uncertain how climate change will affect water levels in the Great Lakes, which already fluctuate periodically, the scientists said. Warmer temperatures will produce less ice cover, boosting evaporation and pushing levels down, but they could rise in years with especially heavy precipitation and temporary deep freezes caused by southward migration of frigid polar air. Although the Trump administration has reversed federal policies intending to prevent global warming, states and local governments can take measures such as increased energy efficiency, stepping up the use of renewable sources, and preventing runoff nutrient-rich manure from large livestock farms, said Howard Lerner, president of Environment and Law Policy Center. Quote, we cannot wait for the Trump administration to accept sound science, Lerner said. We need to step up and act. So I'm going to go through this really quickly. I know this is a long video, so thanks for sticking with me, but I think this is such a weird report. Like, it's very strange. It's saying climate change, like we're experiencing the effects of climate change now. And most of the things they list in this article are future effects. So the effects of climate change so far, 10% jump in rainfall due to large storms. Okay. Lake Superior algae blooms. Okay. That's all of the things that have been attributed to global warming in this article so far. Things that might or could or should happen. They keep saying should. It's always should. Decreasing rainfall by 5 to 15%. So it increased by 10%, right? And now it's going to go back to, it's going to decrease by 5 to 15%. So we're going to go roughly back to where we were. Heat waves could become or should become more common. By the end of the century, we could have 40 additional days with a temperature of 32.2 degrees. So, okay, maybe, but that hasn't happened yet, right? And have hottest days increased last year? No, it was cooler last summer than it was in 2016 by hottest days count. I know I had a number, but I don't have it here. I usually do. I apologize. I should go find it. I'm not. I'm going to get back on track here. I apologize. A decrease in winter snowfall in most places, but locations accustomed to lake effect snow can have more snowfall, especially in the Lake Ontario snowbelt. So less snow, that's climate change. More snow, also climate change. Longer growing seasons, wetter springs, but shouldn't that have happened, right? Shouldn't that be in blah because of the 10% increase in in Great Lakes snow or rainfall in wherever the increase in rainfall made it hard to plant. Has that happened? Give us a link. No, use it as a proof. No, like global warming is happening. This is happening because the planting season was 15 days late this year, 25 days late this year. More sand dune erosion could happen from heavier rainfall. Again, the 10% increase, and that hasn't done anything yet. What does it need to increase to have that erosion? I mean, really. And the last part, this Trump thing, I don't understand this. This is a Hamilton Spectator article, unless they're just lifting it from an AP, like an Associated Press piece somewhere. But it seems really strange to include, that Trump guy, get him. Weird. Very, very strange. And the last little piece I'll show you here is the June 29th, 1989, UN predicts disaster if global warming not checked. As far as I know, this is a real article, and it says a senior UN environmental official says entire nations could be wiped off the face of the earth by rising sea levels if the global warming trend is not reversed by the year 2000. Coastal flooding and crop failures would create an exodus of eco-refugees threatening political chaos, said Noel Brown, director of New York office of the UN Environmental Program, the UNEP. Okay, so interesting to me. Number one, this is all could and maybe, and well, since 1989, do you see warming? Do you see warming? Really? 1989, 1983, there it is. 1989, Star Trek The Next Generation was in season 2, and it was a little bit cold in April, right? And how, in what way show me. It doesn't, if we can't replicate with numbers, with actual climate numbers from the same location, this graph, we should be very, very, very suspicious of people saying a whole bunch of stuff could happen and it's going to happen if you don't give us all your money. I believe strongly that the federal government should be hands off of taxing people for carbon. And I think that local governments and provincial governments have all the responsibility and the jurisdiction they need to handle this problem, if in fact there's anything at all going on. Thank you for watching, everyone. I realize this is controversial, but show me a warming trend, right? Show me a warming trend. And further than that, show me proof that taxing a carbon tax in the form that Mr. Trudeau is proposing reduces emissions. Look at BC. It does not reduce emissions. Okay, that's it for me. This is a long video. Thanks for sticking with me. Have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your weekend.